Democracy That Delivers is brought to you by the Center for International Private Enterprise. Now, to your host.
Welcome to SAIB's Democracy That Delivers podcast. My name is Anna Kampanek. I'm the Director of Global Programs at the Center for International Private Enterprise, or SAIB. And it is my distinct pleasure today to welcome the guest to our program, who is joining us all the way from Warsaw, Poland, Grzegorz Makowski. How are you doing, Grzegorz?
Well, nice to meet you. It's hot weather in Warsaw, Poland, but I'm happy to talk to you.
Hot weather here in Washington, D.C. as well. And as a way of introduction, Grzegorz is a former director of the Public Integrity Program at the Batory Foundation, an expert at the Foundation's IDEA Forum. The Batory Foundation is a Polish organization that aims to build an open, democratic society by improving the quality of Polish democracy and boosting participation in local communities and international society. The foundation does this by providing grants to nonprofit organizations in Poland and Central and Eastern Europe, and hosting debates, conferences, workshops, as well as creating excellent publications, many of which I follow myself. The foundation also supports development of nonprofit organizations and foster strong ties between European Union countries and the EU's eastern neighbors, especially Ukraine and Belarus. And the foundation also serves as the Polish partner of Transparency International. Did I get the main highlights right?
Yes, perfect. Thank you for this introduction.
Excellent. So obviously, as I just even briefly outlined, the foundation has many programs, does a lot of different things. So it was a challenge almost to focus on just one element of your work. But we wanted to talk today specifically about integrity pacts as a way of keeping public spending projects honest. And in particular, the project that the foundation has been involved in, it concluded successfully. So for our audience, let's step back a little bit, though, and perhaps you can help us understand what are integrity pacts.
Well, this is also a very long story. Of course, I don't want to talk, all of this to you, but the funny thing is that when I first got involved into the Transparency International movement, and I was invited for the fellowship in Berlin, during this 3-month fellowship, one of my main tasks was to give advice to someone asking to the help desk from Indonesia how to involve people in monitoring licensing and procurement decisions in Indonesia. And the help desk in Transparency International works like this, that you have to do research, to pick up some advices, some tools that Transparency International has, and propose them some solutions. And I found basically integrity pacts, which was, this tool was called, first of all, it was one of the first tools that Transparency International developed. So it started already in early 90s, even before the Corruption Perception Index, for which Transparency International is probably the best known in the world. So integrity pacts are even older. And what I found researching it, that in the very beginning it was called Islands of Integrity, very poetic name. But there was I think this is very good metaphor, because the idea lies still, because it's the same. The concept, the tool now is much more developed. But I think the very idea of this is the same. And it is that in the environment, which is very much corrupt, to start any change, you have to find some island, actually, which could be kind of good practice, then, which could be then promoted to other parts of public life, to other, let's say, areas of public decisions. And this whole idea actually started not from public procurement, but from licensing, especially for lumber industry, which is very problematic, especially in Indonesia. There is a lot of corruption in wood lumber trade. And the idea is that at least perform one decision which won't be corrupt. Then you can promote it as a good practice. And the best way to create this is to involve people, because usually people don't trust decision makers in such environments. They would like to know what is behind. So if you invite them to observe how the decision is made, then you will have a monitoring. then you will have civic participation, and then you have more chances that this decision will be not corrupt, and it will be for public good, and it will become really a good practice that could be spread to other areas. So the very beginning of integrity pacts, at that time islands of integrity, at the very beginning it was a tool for the countries where corruption is very prevalent, where it's everywhere, where you don't have good, for example, procurement law regulations, you don't have good licensing regulations, where basically if you want to change anything, you have to have people on board. And from this, you can start building institutions, you can start improving law, create procedures, and so on. And when we started this project in Europe, it was actually the very beginning of this pilot was already 2015, and when it ended, it was this year, so it lasted very long. I spent a lot of life with this one pilot. But the idea was because it was the European Commission who approached Transparency International, asking if this is the tool that we could use also in the European Union. And the challenge was, and the question, one of the questions was, if this tool that was developed for the countries which are, I mean, European Union as every region is not free from corruption, but of course we are performing much better than Indonesia, I'm sorry, or other countries, especially public procurement is not so much regulated. But so one of the first challenges and the questions that European Commission wanted to ask and get answer, I mean, if this tool can work in such a dense legal environment, and can it be still useful for us, for public institutions who run a lot of tenders? And it was from the very beginning something very different from what was known before from other countries where integrity pacts or these integrity islands had been applied before. There was some practice. When we started it in Europe in 2015, there were already, I think, more than 150 integrity pacts applied, usually in countries like Indonesia, like Mexico, especially South America. But there were very few examples of application of this tool in Europe, or let's say more developed economies. There were some experiences from Hungary, from Italy, but not too much. So it was really a pilot project. But the idea stayed the same. I mean, the task was, to check if this will work in European Union, and the question was how much it will involve citizens as well in monitoring public procurement that were selected by European Commission for this pilot.
No, that's indeed a fascinating background, and it's very interesting to hear your reasons for choosing to focus on Integrity Pact and trying to test this tool in the European Union context, in the Poland context. So the way Integrity Pacts work, they focus on a particular project, correct? Usually infrastructure project where essentially the contracting authority, the government authority, and the bidders make a commitment to conduct the procurement transparently. And then there is the civil society actor, civil society observer, I believe is the formal name, like Batory Foundation, who monitors that those commitments are indeed upheld. So tell us a little bit more about the particular project that your pilot in Poland focused on. It was concerned with the railway line, is that correct?
Yes. And just one remark to what you said. Indeed, outside Europe, the most of examples of integrity pacts were applied to big projects, infrastructural projects, like dams, like highway infrastructure. Oh, I forgot about one, unfortunately unsuccessful application of Integrity Pact in Europe, which was Brandenburg Airport. I don't know, probably people who travel to Europe already can experience this airport, but it was very, very long way from when this construction started and when it was finalized. And at the very beginning of this Brandenburg Airport, it was also covered by Integrity Pact. It was run by the Transparency International Germany, and I think it took them less than a year or maybe 2 years. I don't remember exactly, but they very quickly left Integrity Pact. The observer the monitor, civic monitor, simply left because at the very beginning they saw that they cannot do anything because actually it was so much corrupt in Germany. So you don't have to travel to Mexico. I mean, to experience corruption from Europe, you can have it in Germany as well. But this tool can be applicable to not only to big infrastructural projects, and that was decision of the European Commission because the whole pilot in Europe was conducted in 11 countries. There were, I think, even over 20, I think, projects that were covered, and different sizes and different areas. So there were small projects like reconstruction or renovation of kindergarten, and there were big projects like ours, which was probably the biggest in Poland, which was indeed the railway line. Not too long. I mean, to those who know Poland, maybe know the Częstochowa and Żywiec, and those
I do.
who don't know, I'm inviting you, very nice areas. 50 kilometers of railway between these two towns, but very costly and very challenging infrastructural project. It's the initial value of this project was 100,000 euros. I mean, for us at least, it was big. So it was 500,000 zlotys. So it was really challenging for us, and especially for the foundation, who was indeed. I mean, we started in the competition. I mean, there was no competition because nobody wanted to take it from Poland. So we were the only one who declared them ourselves as a potential monitor, and the European Commission, I mean, they selected us. But foundation, as you said at the very beginning, I mean, do a lot of projects, and at the beginning of the foundation in 90s, we had even some infrastructural projects indeed. But 2016, when the right pilot started, we were already mostly grant-giving organization with some small think tank inside. And it was task of us, our think tank, I mean, to build the team, to build the whole project from scratch. And of course, I am sociologist. I don't know anything about infrastructure, and even less than about railway infrastructure. So we had to build a team of those who know a lot about corruption, which is me, for example, and my team at that time, and the people who know public procurement law. Especially we needed engineers, which was really a challenge. We have a lot of lawyers in Poland, maybe even some kind of overproduction of lawyers. But engineers already left to the US, to Germany, to other countries where they are much better paid. So we didn't have any, let's say, big selection of consultants. And but in the end, we had a very good company. The pilots lasted for a couple of years, as you can imagine. So on the way, the company went bankrupt. And fortunately, some engineers from the company that worked with us from the beginning of the pilot stayed with us, so they didn't left us. But at some point we had to replace them, and we simply couldn't find people on the market to give us consultancy. So it was challenging from the beginning. And I mean, from the, let's say, from the top, I mean, this whole infrastructure doesn't look very complicated because it was just a renovation of the infrastructure, railway stations and tracks. But when you go into depth, for example, I, as an ordinary citizen, as a sociologist, looking at corruption and never had anything to do with engineering, I must say that I learned a lot, and I saw how complicated it is and how many spots in such a infrastructural projects where you can find corruption actually, or disorganization, or misuse of money. How many places in not so big, because there are much bigger infrastructural projects you can find, and without cooperation between people like me who, let's say, spend life on tracking corruption, but on the other hand, with engineers who know how it is done in practice, and lawyers who specialize in public procurement. I mean, without such a multidisciplinary team, would be impossible to monitor it. But Commission had even more expectations about civic involvement. They wanted involvement not only from the foundation, but also from citizens that were somehow affected by this investment. And it was another very difficult task, which we failed. Maybe not totally, but it wasn't very successful.
Yes, so you already in part anticipated my next question, which is about lessons learned from your organization's participation in the process. Sounds like one lesson is very clear. As a rule, probably the nonprofit organizations that serve in the civil society observer role don't have the expertise, in-house technical expertise on whatever industry that the project is taking place in. And it may not be easy to find that expertise outside, as you mentioned. Anything else comes to mind from the perspective of the nonprofit organization? So essentially, I'm thinking, perhaps some of our listeners in different countries also they've heard about integrity pacts, they work in nonprofits organizations. If they are considering, perhaps we should try an integrity pact in our country, what else should they keep in mind about their own capacity and about the process itself?
Oh, there are many lessons, of course. I mean, the main lesson was that because it was a pilot, it was kind of applicable project for me, even academic, because I also work as an academic. So I even took something, let's say, to my university as well from this project. But the first lesson, I think that is important, that this tool, this concept of integrity pact is not only for less developed countries. It can be applied to countries where you have very dense legal environment. In Poland, we have, for example, very developed public procurement legislation, and our public procurement law, which is not only law that you have to take into account, has, I think, 600 articles. So you can imagine. Of course, not every article is applicable here, but who knows? I mean, but anyway, I mean, the first challenge was, as I mentioned, I mean, the question, and we could fail at the very beginning because we could conclude, and it would be also some results for the European Commission, that it is something that you don't need, for example, that is not compatible with the legal environment, with legislation. And there could be a failure at the very beginning because there was a risk that we simply won't be able to construct the pact, because the pact in practice is an agreement, three-party agreement between observer, the monitor, civic monitor, between the contracting authority and the bidder, and then the company that implements the investment. But we found it. We found the formula, and in our report from Poland, I think that was the best formula that we found. That you can have this agreement. It doesn't have to conflict with the law. And going to next lesson, I think that's very important. Why this could be useful? Because all about this monitoring is access to information. And at the same time, in Poland, we also have quite good access to information legislation since 2001. But if you would like to use only this legislation, this law, to monitor investment like this, it would be impossible because every day something happens, especially when you are already in the implementation phase. So every day some decisions are made, some money are spent, some invoices are issued. I mean, referring only to the general legislation that we have in Poland, it would be impossible to monitor it. For one simple reason, for example, when you are asking some institution or like this contracting authority to provide you some information, they can provide you and they have 14 days to answer you. I mean, they can be quicker, but the practice is that nobody wants to be quicker. So they would use, the whole period of time that they have. But they usually, especially public companies, which are between the state and our contractor was something like this. They are between the state and the private sector. So they often simply refuse any information because they say, you are asking about secrets, commercial secrets. So I think it was very important lesson, and I think very good side of the Integrity Pact is that if you construct it well and if you guarantee free and direct access to information about what you monitor, then you can really monitor this in an ongoing manner. I mean, without such a contract, without such an agreement, without this pact, it would be impossible to monitor this, because we wouldn't be able to get information in an ongoing manner. I think that the third lesson is that, I mean, the pilot was very, let's say, ambitious, because the task was to monitor, I mean, to build the pack, to apply it, and then monitor it through the whole time when the investment was being implemented. So in our case, it took us the whole time, and when we were finalizing our pack, the investment was still, there were some elements of it that were not finished, but we simply had to finish integrity pack. But we were almost, I mean, 98% of this investment was monitored and covered by the pack. So it took us 6 years effectively. But so it is very costly, it is very demanding. When you are a civil society organization, you have to be careful, because without any support, financial support, resources, it would be simply very difficult to do something like this. We had money from European Commission, so it was easy in a sense. But without any donor, it would be very difficult. But it doesn't mean that Integrity Pact doesn't make sense, because, I mean, as many research projects show, I mean, you can select elements of the investment, of the procurement process, and focus only on these elements. For example, tendering phase. I mean, when you don't have resources to monitor whole investment, focus on the tendering phase. Many irregularities, many cases of corruption, collusion, things like this happen at the tendering phase. So you don't have to be, for many years with the project to monitor it, and it is still applicable to some elements of the tendering. So you have to plan it, and I think the Integrity Pact doesn't have to cover the whole investment. It is still useful if you focus on some part of it. And I think the fourth important lesson is that you never know how people who are affected by some investment can be ready to be mobilized. I mean, I said that we failed mobilizing, let's say, citizens to monitor this investment with us. But it was very important part of the bigger railway line in Poland. So we expected that everyone would be interested. But of course, it isn't like this. I mean, people get interested when there is trouble, and then they suddenly reveal that something useful can be done, and there are some useful tools like integrity pacts. One short story, I mean, of this mobilization. I mean, through the 6 years, we tried to organize consultations, to invite people from the region where this investment took place, and it was really difficult, to get people for the meetings, to get information from the general public. When everything was smooth and nobody really cared. But in the end of this investment, in one of stations, when there was a trouble because of the passing under the railway tracks, and it was very dangerous, because people had only temporary pass on the saffrons, so they could simply be hit by the train. And it lasted for a year, and finally they came to us asking, do something with it. You are monitoring it. Why it is not progressing? And we took this, and we had in this town, real mobilization. We managed to bring even general directors from the contracting authority, from the contractor, from the ministry that was paying for this investment. And in the end, people said, oh, yeah, because we were blaming our local authorities. And after all these meetings, we found out that local authorities are not responsible for this, because this is central investment. And they are, local authorities, they are friends with us. So let's come together and push the central authorities and the central contractor to finalize this element of this investment. But if we knew it from the beginning, then we would be much more involved in observing this situation. So that was a lesson for them, but also it was maybe a lesson for us who were implementing it from Warsaw, because the Batory Foundation is also central. We were coming there from Warsaw. That maybe we should put much more effort to talk with people and to talk to them much more clearer and to, let's say, put more light on their situation and on the risks that they can face if the investment won't be going well enough.
Great lessons on all fronts. We're almost out of time. So my last question will be very short, very quick. What's next? The pilot project is over. Are you planning to continue working on integrity packs in any way, or are you shifting your attention somewhere else?
Well, for the foundation, it was very demanding. Unfortunately, also because, the geopolitical environment, we had to change our priorities in the foundation. Some people left. Actually, I'm only one guy who is left in the foundation after this project. But I'm still in touch with our ministry, which is responsible, and our public procurement office, and the ministry which is responsible for spending EU money. We try to. They know everything, so we serve them as a consultants. If anyone is interested, because it is not obligatory to use the Integrity Pact after all of this. European Commission is recommending it to implement it for the projects that are financed from the European Commission. Our ministry, which is responsible for spending EU money in Poland, also recommends this. But so we'll see. We are I am in place. People are not maybe in my team, but they are in other places. They are open for cooperation. So some knowledge was created, and there are some people who know what is this already in Poland, and they can serve. And there is some interest, especially from the local governments. And half of the Polish public procurement market, almost half, is at the local level. So who knows? What we try to do from the foundation, we try to reach with the results of this project local governments with which we cooperate systematically, and there is interest in it, and the European Commission tries to promote it. Who knows? Maybe we will have another integrity pact soon. At least we now have a very good broad experience from different places in Europe. We can share it. We know how to apply it to big projects, to small projects, to infrastructural projects, to IT projects, and so on and so on. So I think that simply knowledge is in our hands. So if anyone wants to use it, I am at your disposal in Poland, Transparency International in Berlin, and these other 10 countries which were involved in this pilot. I think they would be happy to share what
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And in the interest of sharing knowledge, we'll be sure to include the links to Batory Foundation website and report with much more detail about the project you monitored than we were able to cover in our limited time here. Once again, Grzegorz, thank you so much for joining us today, for sharing your experience, sharing your lessons, and we hope to stay in touch. Thank you so much.
Democracy That Delivers has been brought to you by the Center for International Private Enterprise. For more information, please visit sipe.org.